On August 28, 2021, a chilling 911 call to the Greenville County Sheriff's Office in South Carolina reported the sudden and unexplained disappearance of Edna Suttles, an 80-year-old woman deeply admired for her dedication to helping the elderly community in Travelers Rest. Her vanishing without a trace left family and friends in a state of shock and growing dread. As law enforcement raced against time to uncover the truth, what began as a simple search spiraled into a dark and twisted tale. The investigation revealed links to Daniel Glenn Prince, a man with a disturbing history and a penchant for targeting vulnerable women. Behind Edna's disappearance lay a web of deceit and violence, hinting at a chilling mystery that demanded to be unraveled. Edna Suttles was a beloved and highly respected member of the Travelers Rest, South Carolina community. At 80 years old, she defied her age with a vibrant spirit and tireless dedication to helping others. For many years, Edna worked selflessly with the elderly, providing essential care, companionship, and support. Her acts of kindness left an indelible mark on those around her, and she was admired for her warmth, empathy, and unwavering reliability. In a community that valued compassion, Edna was seen as a shining example of genuine service. Edna's strong ties to her family and friends reflected the importance she placed on personal connections. She remained in close contact with her loved ones, calling regularly, maintaining daily visits, and never missing appointments or commitments. Her consistency and predictable routine became a source of reassurance to her circle, making her sudden disappearance all the more shocking and uncharacteristic. When Edna failed to show up for a planned meeting, those who knew her immediately recognized that something was seriously wrong. The situation grew even more troubling when law enforcement entered her home and found her loyal dog left alone, something Edna would never do willingly. There were no immediate signs of a struggle, no forced entry, and no clues pointing to her whereabouts. Edna's purse, shoes, medication, and her gold Jeep Grand Cherokee were all missing, further deepening the mystery and heightening fears for her safety. Her loved ones were left to grapple with an overwhelming sense of dread, while investigators worked to uncover the truth behind her sudden and alarming disappearance. Edna Suttles was known throughout her community as a kind, dependable, and deeply compassionate woman. Her life was characterized by a strong commitment to caring for others, particularly the elderly. Even at 80, Edna dedicated her time and energy to providing companionship, support, and practical assistance to those in need. Whether through acts of service, attentive listening, or simply offering a kind word, Edna made those around her feel valued and cared for. Her nurturing spirit earned her admiration and respect from friends, family, and anyone fortunate enough to know her. Edna's sense of duty went beyond obligation. She saw helping others as a calling. Her aspirations centered on making a positive difference in the lives of others. She was a constant presence in her community, inspiring trust and bringing comfort to those who felt alone or vulnerable. It was this deeply rooted sense of purpose that made her disappearance so unsettling to those who loved her. In stark contrast, Daniel Glenn Prince presented himself as a traveling handyman, but behind this facade lay a dark and deeply troubling history. With a criminal record that included serious offenses, Prince had a pattern of ingratiating himself with vulnerable, often elderly women. His charm masked manipulative tendencies, and he systematically developed relationships rooted in exploitation and personal gain. Prince's motives were driven by greed and control, targeting his victims through deceit and preying upon their trust. Where Edna embodied selfless care and compassion, Prince exemplified manipulation and malice, creating a stark juxtaposition that would ultimately lead to tragedy. On the morning of August 27, 2021, Edna Suttles was seen on surveillance footage meeting with Daniel Glenn Prince at a Food Lion grocery store in Travelers Rest, South Carolina. The footage captured Prince arriving in his silver Chevy Cruze shortly before Edna pulled into the parking lot in her gold Jeep Grand Cherokee. Their interaction appeared familiar and cordial, suggesting a pre-existing relationship or prior arrangement between the two. Witnesses and investigators later speculated that Edna may have trusted Prince due to his role as a handyman or acquaintance within the community. After a brief conversation, Edna and Prince left the grocery store and drove back to her residence together. The footage confirmed their return to Edna's home, indicating that she had willingly allowed Prince into her home or that they had made plans in advance. This interaction would tragically mark the last known time that Edna was seen alive by her family or friends. What followed was a series of concerning events that pointed to foul play. At approximately 1:43 p.m. on the same day, surveillance footage captured Edna's Jeep leaving her driveway. However, this time it was Prince who was driving the vehicle alone. His possession of Edna's car, combined with his movements that were later tracked to a Best Western parking lot, where he meticulously wiped down the vehicle, raised immediate suspicions. Prince's attempt to erase any trace of evidence suggested a calculated effort to cover his tracks, casting a dark shadow over the mystery of Edna's sudden disappearance. Investigators knew they were racing against time to uncover what had happened to her. On the afternoon of August 27, 2021, Daniel Glenn Prince was seen leaving Edna Suttles' home alone in her gold Jeep Grand Cherokee. His movements, tracked by a network of surveillance cameras, painted a disturbing and calculated pattern of behavior. Prince drove the Jeep to the parking lot of a Best Western hotel in Travelers Rest, South Carolina. Once there, he exhibited highly suspicious actions, meticulously wiping down the interior and exterior surfaces of the vehicle. He carefully cleaned door handles, steering wheel, seats, and any area that might retain fingerprints or trace evidence. His actions were chillingly methodical, suggesting a deliberate effort to cover his tracks and erase any proof that could implicate him. After abandoning Edna's Jeep at the Best Western, Prince walked back to his silver Chevy Cruze, parked at a nearby Food Lion grocery store. The seemingly casual return to his own car was captured on security cameras, adding to the mounting evidence against him. It was as if he intended to distance himself from the scene of a crime, leaving Edna's vehicle, and with it any clues to her fate, in an attempt to evade detection. These actions immediately escalated law enforcement's concerns for Edna's safety. Detectives knew they were not merely dealing with a missing person case. Prince's behavior indicated premeditation and the potential for foul play. With each new piece of evidence, suspicions about his motives grew. As part of the investigation, authorities began scrutinizing Prince's background. What they found painted a deeply troubling portrait. He was a convicted felon with a criminal record that included kidnapping, firearm possession, and other offenses. More alarmingly, Prince had a pattern of targeting vulnerable women, often gaining their trust through his work as a handyman before exploiting them. The chilling possibility that Edna Suttles had become another victim in his twisted schemes led law enforcement to intensify their efforts, hoping to uncover any clues that might lead to her whereabouts or shed light on her fate. As law enforcement delved into the case of Edna Suttles' disappearance, a comprehensive investigation quickly centered around Daniel Glenn Prince. Surveillance footage captured on August 27, 2021, provided the first significant lead. Prince was seen interacting with Edna at a Food Lion grocery store before the two returned to her home. Hours later, he was filmed driving her gold Jeep Grand Cherokee alone, wiping down surfaces before abandoning it in a Best Western parking lot. This calculated behavior immediately suggested a deliberate attempt to eliminate evidence, raising serious concerns among detectives. In their effort to piece together Prince's involvement, investigators uncovered more evidence tying him to Edna. At the Food Lion, security footage showed Prince making a purchase using a loyalty card. This allowed law enforcement to trace his identity through store records and confirm his movements around the time Edna was last seen. The data provided a clear timeline of his actions and demonstrated that he was no stranger to Edna, raising questions about the nature of their relationship. The investigation also revealed that Prince had built a rapport with Edna under the guise of being a handyman. This discovery became critical, as it fit a broader pattern of behavior in Prince's life. Authorities learned that Prince often presented himself as a helpful handyman to gain the trust of vulnerable, often elderly women. By developing relationships based on perceived reliability, he created opportunities to exploit his victims financially and emotionally. Edna, it appeared, had fallen victim to this same predatory tactic. Further digging into Prince's past uncovered an extensive criminal record that painted a chilling portrait of his violent tendencies. His criminal history included a kidnapping conviction for which he had served 13 years in prison in Michigan, as well as charges related to firearm possession by a convicted felon and battery. Investigators discovered that his time in prison had done little to reform his behavior. Instead, It seemed to have honed his skills in manipulation and deceit. This background added a sense of urgency to the search for Edna, as authorities feared she may have become another victim in a series of calculated acts of exploitation. Detectives began tracing Prince's interactions and previous relationships with other women, many of whom were elderly, vulnerable, or isolated. This deepened their suspicion that Edna's disappearance was not an isolated incident. Prince's pattern of behavior suggested a methodical approach to targeting women who could be easily manipulated and controlled. In interviews, members of Edna's family and community expressed disbelief and growing fear, realizing that someone they had trusted as a handyman had potentially betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. Investigators worked tirelessly to build a case against Prince. Evidence, including surveillance footage, loyalty card records, phone data, and testimony from Edna's friends and family, began to create a damning narrative of manipulation, betrayal, and potentially deadly intent. Prince's criminal past, combined with the mounting evidence, painted him as a predator whose charm masked a sinister agenda. The investigation became a race not only to bring him to justice, but also to uncover the full extent of his crimes and any other potential victims. Determined to uncover the truth behind Edna Suttles' disappearance and ensure justice was served, law enforcement intensified their focus on Daniel Glenn Prince. Multiple search warrants were executed at Prince's residence in Rutherford County, North Carolina. What investigators found went far beyond their initial expectations. Inside his home, they uncovered a cache of firearms, many with missing or obliterated serial numbers. Given his status as a convicted felon, Prince was prohibited from possessing any firearms, making these discoveries a serious violation of state and federal laws. However, the most significant finds were not the weapons themselves, but the trove of evidence that tied Prince to other potential victims. Among the items seized were 28 electronic devices, including cell phones, laptops, and storage drives. Forensic analysis of these devices revealed connections to multiple missing women, including Nancy Rego and Lee Goodman. The presence of these devices and personal items belonging to other women suggested a broader pattern of predation, and authorities began to suspect that Prince could be a serial offender. Investigators also discovered identification documents, bank cards, and other personal effects tied to Nancy Rego, a 66-year-old woman who had gone missing under suspicious circumstances. Nancy's Social Security deposits and bank account continued to be used long after her disappearance, further implicating Prince in a scheme to exploit and control his victims financially. This led detectives to suspect foul play, but they faced significant challenges in building a definitive murder case without a body or conclusive evidence of how she died. Similarly, the case of Lee Goodman, another missing woman with ties to Prince, became part of the expanding investigation. Though the circumstances surrounding her disappearance remained unclear, evidence recovered from Prince's property suggested that she, too, had been targeted. Investigators worked tirelessly to link Prince's activities to these women, fearing that they might have suffered a fate similar to Edna's. Despite the mounting evidence, obtaining clear proof of murder remained difficult. Prince refused to cooperate with authorities, denying involvement and providing conflicting stories during interrogations. His evasiveness and manipulative demeanor further complicated the effort to build a case against him. Law enforcement continued to pore over the recovered electronic devices, searching for any digital footprints, messages, or files that could provide definitive links to the disappearances and possible murders of these women. The lack of full cooperation from Prince was a major obstacle. Without a confession or physical evidence directly tying him to the deaths, proving murder beyond a reasonable doubt was a daunting challenge. Nevertheless, investigators remained resolute, determined to use every tool at their disposal to bring Prince to justice, not just for Edna Suttles, but for any other victims he might have harmed or exploited. The search for justice continued, driven by the hope of uncovering the full extent of his crimes and holding him accountable for every life he may have destroyed. After months of exhaustive investigation and mounting pressure from law enforcement, Daniel Glenn Prince was confronted with a damning array of evidence tying him to the disappearances and suspected murders of multiple women, including Edna Suttles. Realizing that his options were narrowing, Prince finally broke his silence. Under intense questioning, he confessed to the murders of several women, including Edna. This moment marked a critical breakthrough in the case, offering long-awaited answers to the families of his victims and the investigators who had tirelessly pursued justice. In a bid to avoid the death penalty, Prince agreed to cooperate with law enforcement. As part of this agreement, he led authorities to Edna Suttles' burial site. On May 16, 2022, law enforcement escorted him to a remote wooded area near his North Carolina property. There, they discovered Edna's body, lying on her side and still fully clothed, with her jewelry intact. Despite having been buried for months, her remains were in a condition that allowed for a full autopsy, which confirmed that she had been drugged and then strangled. A grim end to the life of a woman who had devoted herself to helping others. With Edna's fate confirmed, Prince's confessions provided crucial insights into his broader pattern of predation. He admitted to targeting and manipulating vulnerable women, exploiting their trust for his own gain. The confessions also shed light on the fates of other potential victims, revealing the extent of his crimes and the cold calculation behind his actions. On June 21, 2022, Prince pled guilty to kidnapping resulting in death in connection with Edna Suttles' case. As part of his plea deal, he avoided the death penalty but received the maximum sentence available: life in prison without the possibility of parole. Prince's imprisonment marked the end of a reign of terror for a man who had preyed on society's most vulnerable members. It was a hard-fought victory for Edna's family and for the investigators who had worked tirelessly to hold him accountable. Though no punishment could undo the harm he inflicted, the sentence ensured that Prince would spend the rest of his life behind bars, unable to harm anyone else. The outcome provided a measure of justice and closure for Edna's loved ones and served as a testament to the perseverance and dedication of those who fought to bring her killer to justice. The case of Daniel Glenn Prince highlighted the devastating consequences of unchecked manipulation and exploitation. Prince's calculated and predatory behavior underscored his willingness to target and destroy the lives of vulnerable individuals, using charm and deception to gain their trust. His ability to exploit people who relied on him for assistance revealed both a dark intent and a shocking level of premeditation. The case serves as a stark reminder of the dangers posed by those who prey on the trusting and vulnerable within our communities. Edna Suttles' tragic death, along with the suffering of other victims linked to Prince, represents the heartbreaking reality of how quickly trust can be betrayed. Edna was a caring and compassionate woman who devoted her life to helping others. Yet, in her final days, she fell victim to a man who sought only to exploit and harm. The pain felt by her family and the fear rippling through the community emphasize the critical need for vigilance and proactive measures to protect at-risk populations, including the elderly. This case also shed light on broader societal issues, including the importance of supporting those who may be isolated or susceptible to exploitation. It highlighted the need for stronger safeguards, increased awareness, and the dedication of law enforcement and community members working together to expose and stop predators like Prince. By learning from such cases, we can strive to build a more compassionate and secure society that safeguards its most vulnerable citizens from harm. In remembering Edna and the other victims, their stories serve as a lasting call for justice, accountability, and better protection for those at risk. The resilience of their families and the relentless pursuit of justice by investigators offer a glimmer of hope that even in the darkest of circumstances, there is a commitment to seek out the truth and hold those who exploit others accountable for their actions. Daniel Glenn Prince now serves a life sentence in prison, ensuring that he can never again inflict harm on others. The pursuit of justice for Edna Suttles, a beloved and selfless member of her community, exemplifies the unwavering dedication and resilience of law enforcement, family members, and the community at large. Their determination to uncover the truth and bring a dangerous predator to justice demonstrates how, even in the face of complex and deeply troubling crimes, compassion and persistence can prevail. The case of Edna Suttles serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of vigilance, support for vulnerable populations, and the tireless work needed to ensure that predators are held accountable. While no outcome can erase the pain endured by the victims and their families, the dedication shown throughout the investigation brings hope that justice can be served and future harm can be prevented. If you found this story compelling and want to stay informed about cases like these, subscribe to our channel for more true crime stories, investigative breakthroughs, and real-life accounts of resilience and justice. Don't forget to like, share, and click the bell icon for updates. Thank you for watching.